Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. I just remembered to actually look to see if this is broadcasting, and we are broadcasting. Last week I started with the mention of Star Wars, and it would be remiss of me this evening if I didn't mention the very sad passing of Carrie Fisher. So that'll be my bookmark for this tonight's or this week's episode. So that's a sad thing. Good evening to everybody. We're joined this evening by Colin Snow, Jean, Matt from SkySkopes, and Rory, our ag guru. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, guys.
Good afternoon, Gary.
That's it.
Hello,
so let's kick off. Let's kick off with things that I've seen this week. And the first one, which I think, Jean, I don't know if you saw it today, but some guys are touting auto stall detection for these separate lift, thrust, and VTOL things. Did you see that, Jean, at all?
No, I didn't. Please explain.
Well, if you've got your multi-rotor kind of aeroplane gig mixed together thing, you know, you've seen a quad. It's like where a quadcopter's had an accident with a fixed-wing aircraft and they've come together as one. Where that happens, the hybrid, yeah. So where that happens, pitch down, or if it sees a drop in airspeed, it will pick the airplane up, and it will auto detect the stall. I thought that was pretty cool, and it's going to be some sort of feature that's required in a delivery drone, should delivery drones ever happen. I suppose the other feature might be to pop a parachute out at that point. I don't know if you have. I've not actually flown anything with stall detection. Have you?
Well, the real stuff, yeah, but the small stuff, I mean, it's not as critical on the small stuff as it is with the big stuff. If you have, and you got to understand, I've been doing a flying wing that is set up so that it's really stall stable, so that, you know, you can pull full up elevator and it doesn't do anything wonky on you. It'll just kind of hobby horse right to the ground and kind of a flat attitude. So,
yeah, that was my.
Yeah.
The question is, you know, how useful is this technology going to be? Because if you're doing a VTOL unit and you're going to transition to landing, surely it's going to transition through this point where it's going to stall.
Well, I think, but I think that'll be like a brute force sort of thing, really. Then, you know, it knows it's going from one to the other, and it'll just, I suppose the question is, should it stall in that phase? What does it do? And some of the transitions I've seen out of there are pretty brutal, pretty airframe breaking sort of stops. I can't see when I had my order of Fabergé eggs. Is that the name of those eggs? Those fabulous, expensive eggs coming all the way from Russia. When they deliver those, I do worry about them if they're going to do. I'm probably not going to get Amazon to deliver them. But I've seen some pretty terrible transitions. And I think you're right, Gene. If you should make your airframe or your aircraft should recover itself from unusual attitudes as quickly as possible, just like you would in an airplane.
It's easy for us to do with our little planes. We can build that in, you know, use a little trade-off for efficiency and that sort of thing. And I'd be really interested in knowing, are they detecting laminar airflow detachment, or is it just an airspeed sort of sensor?
Airspeed, I believe it's airspeed.
Just airspeed? That doesn't tell you whether it's in a stall condition or not. It'll give you a good idea that if you're supposed to be flying, 12 meters a second and you're at 11, you could be about to stall, but it doesn't necessarily mean the case, depending upon, what your relative wind is. Of course, I'm starting to geek out on you there, but I'm sure they've got it all figured out, and it's probably wonderful.
It probably is, isn't it? It probably is. Let's then, on Christmas Day, I noticed people started talking about losing their drones, and I felt very sorry for them. I felt very sorry for all. I can just imagine being 10 or 11 and this thing arriving, and of course you're not. Reading the manual is the most ridiculous comment to say to anybody. Nobody, especially if you're 10, you do not read the manual. And if you're a small boy, you should not read the manual. If you read the manual, there's something wrong with you. So yeah, there's a lot, and it started trending on Christmas Day, which blew my mind. Did anyone else have any thoughts about that? So we start on the left with Colin, on the right.
Yeah,
I
sure.
guess.
Yeah, I do have thoughts. In fact, it came up in my regular Google search feed on drones, and I printed out a couple of them. These ended up on Craigslist, and they were on Craigslist and became so popular that it actually ended up in the most searched item. And so here's one, I can read these directly. So lost drone, Yosemite Lakes Park. I'm not sure where that is. That's somewhere in California. Santa brought our family a new drone, and boy, did it take off fast. Did you find it? Reward for anyone who helps us find it. Thank you, Santa, and anybody else who gets it back. And then here's another one in Modesto, drone. Lost drone, December 25th, near Oakdale and La Force. Please call if found.
Yeah. So what advice, it's probably a bit late for anyone that's lost them on Christmas Day, but moving forward, what advice would we have for anybody with, other than reading the manual? I know you should read the manual. I know you should look at YouTube. I know you should do all the sensible things, but if you lose, I mean, who here can hold up their hand and say they've not lost one? Come on, be honest. I've lost lots. Well, I found them again, but I've had flyaways. Anyway,
Yep.
yeah. Now Rory's not admitting to anything. He's
no. Okay, so I personally I've lost drones, or I saw where it went down. It could have resulted in a flyaway. And it was because of operator error. I made the mistake of putting the battery lead too close to the GPS magnetometer, and there was a magnetic field, and bye-bye, it went away, and it didn't matter how much I tried to get it back. But yeah, we've lost drones, lost units.
I think probably the one thing that I learned is that they go a lot further than you think they do.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think the opposite.
Yeah.
I think the opposite. I don't think they go as far as you think they go. Oh, well, I'm wrong then.
I have gone out and said, it flew this way and it looked like it went down by the big tree over there. And you go out to the big tree, you say, it can't have come this far. There's no way it could come this far. And then you go another 100 yards and there it is.
Yeah, maybe that's because in Texas you do things bigger and better, so yours probably fly further than.
I didn't think about that. There was
that must be what it is, because mine never goes. The bits are always a lot closer than I thought. When I eventually get there.
We learned from soybeans. You can be standing right on top of the unit, and it can be painted bright red, and you still can't see it. You simply can't see it.
I've got a true story from this morning. Actually, I made myself. Do you see those paper airplane things where they're fantastic little things? Anyway, I made this flying wing this morning, and the point of this story is to go with the RC paper airplane, fly it from the app thing, power up. I think that's what it's called. And I was flying this and it went a little bit far, so not very far when I got it. But I put my mobile phone down in the field and blowed if I could find my mobile phone for about 10 minutes after I did it. That was a real schoolboy error. That really was. So yeah, lost drones trended in 2016. I wonder in Christmas of 2017 if there's drone sales are going to be high enough to warrant this sort of attention. Let's start looking ahead at next year. What's going to happen next year? We've got to go to Colin for that first, because he is the soothsayer of the industry. So you've even put up a post of the crystal ball, so you must be. In fact, show us your balls, Colin.
Right. Well, so we do look at drone sales numbers, and we're looking at what we think, and we won't know until next week when CTA comes out. At least in the US, they'll release their numbers for the drone sales. That's all units, that's all drones, including drones under 250 grams, which aren't registerable, and then everything over. And they're expecting sales to about double. Now, that's what we saw, that was going to be the case this year. But what happens in 2017 is nobody knows, because we think it'll slow down. We think there'll be somewhat of the craze will be over, at least in the consumer market. But then it might be offset by the number of drones that are sold in the commercial market. And most of those will be sort of in the prosumer range. So in the last year, we did a study on the price range of drones that people are using for professional works. And surprisingly, that $1,000 to $2,000 range actually ends up that majority of those are being used for commercial purposes. That's either public or private. So it could be somebody's first responder or fire department, but it's probably mostly just photographers and videos. And then everything above $2,000, it's almost entirely 85%, and it goes up from there, is used for professional work. So we'll know at the beginning of next year. We'll do some studies to see, what changes, what price ranges are people buying at. So that's one of the things we'll keep a track on. But the other thing that I can predict with fair certainty is that when AUVSI's new forecast comes out, it will be fiction. That's because I've heard, it'll be another piece of fiction, because I've heard again from the writer, one of the co-writers, who says she's an economist, that it's going to be a political forecast, just like the last one. The last one was political because it was to get the states to understand the economic benefit when they're competing for the 6 test sites for drones.
Okay.
And
So
so that's
just
why we're so big.
Just explain that political bit for me. I don't quite understand. So, okay, so that was for the test site. So how?
So the forecast for the economic benefit back in 2013, when AUVSI first did their forecast, they went state by state to look at the potential economic benefit that drones would have for the state economy, so that when the states came back to the FAA to compete for becoming a state that would have a test site, they would have the political backing, so that they would understand the impact. And according to the writer, we interviewed the writer, according to the writer, they actually had to have a number that was high enough so that it would have some kind of political moxie, but not too high that the General Accounting Office would ding it and say that it's too high. That's what I mean by political forecast. So in 2017 now, the new AUVSI sponsored forecast, same writers, or same writer, same basic writer, wants to get the FAA, AUVSI wants to get the FAA to get off the dime and begin to understand the economic benefits of beyond visual line of sight. And of course, the killer app that they are touting for beyond visual line of sight is, what do you think it is?
AeroVironment.
No, not again.
Drone delivery. Drone delivery. That's the killer app.
Sorry, I went to the
so now it will be touting the economic benefits of drone delivery, which has been dissected 20 ways from Sunday to prove that it really has no potential large impact economically, that can't be done with current local delivery. So the incremental value just isn't there. But there you have it. That's my solid prediction that we'll see this, and supposedly it's coming by mid-January.
So is that a bit of a scoop then? So the AUVSI forecast is going to be centered around drone delivery this time.
It'll be one of the major points.
And what happened to ag then? Is it withered on the vine?
Well, it's unclear yet, but just from what I gathered from the writer that was still in there, that's because the main writer, Daryl Jenkins, is actually a farmer, and we'll see. We'll see what happens when we get that report. But you know how I feel about that. I've done the economic study on it, and shows that the ROI is a long way off and very hard to prove. And Rory can obviously knows more about this than I do. But the sheer economics are very difficult to get to where you would say that there is a big economic impact from the use of drone imagery in precision agriculture.
Well, we're going into this 2017 is going to be the make or break year for ag, isn't it? It's the year, the first growing season since 107.
Right.
So if it doesn't work this year, it ain't gonna work.
Well, the leading indicator of that is Measure, right? Measure. 30.
Oh yeah, Measure.
When they did the ROI study, right? And now they've kind of backed way off. They've backpedaled way off, and in private conversations they say, yeah, we're still in agriculture, but we're going to focus on other areas where we know that there's a clear return on investment.
There's been, on the ag side, listen, there's a lot of ego involved, and a lot of people have been touting ag for a long time, and to turn around and swallow your pride and say, hey, this is not really going to work the way that we've been saying it was going to work. It stems from, we had UAV companies that didn't understand agriculture, agricultural companies that didn't understand UAVs, a lot of academics in between, and this AUVSI forecast out there, and everybody was just in ag, okay? I mean, you look at Drone Deploy. Drone Deploy was going to be the ag company, etc. So, until commodity prices turn around, the agricultural sector is going to be flat, flat, flat.
Well, that's what you've said that before about prices, in that it's just it makes it nonsensical from a price point of view. Now, here in South Africa, we've just started our growing season, and I've been trying these ag apps the best I can with a Phantom 3 Professional with only an RGB sensor, but they do advertise several services that I'm supposed to be able to make use of with just an RGB sensor, and so far I've been utterly underwhelmed. And if I were to add another a more expensive NDVI sensor of whatever sort, I think I'd be even more unimpressed because I'd be unsure of what I was getting out of that. But I'm not a farmer, and I would be playing the part of the drone enthusiast that's coming to make you, Mr. Farmer, your day a much better, and I'm going to improve your returns on your farm no end, even though I have no clue how your farm actually works. And my mate Steve up the road has impressed me no end, and I've actually learned a lot about what he really does and his knowledge of his land and what goes on there. And I think that for me is the biggest takeaway. I have a hunch, and there's just a hunch, a gut feeling, that Silicon Valley got very excited about this and has gone off and tried to help an industry that needs some help, but it doesn't need the help in the way that they perceive it. I don't know, Rory, you go on. You're the expert.
So this is general misunderstanding. It goes back to applications as well. So the Holy Grail application, or we came up with that term, the Holy Grail application for ag, was in input management, nitrogen, because nitrogen's expensive. We're going to do variable rate, etc. So you're going to go and buy this drone. You're going to put an NVDI camera on it, and then you're going to generate this data so that the farmer can control the amount of nitrogen putting down. But what everybody failed to realize is that you've bought your $20,000 drone. He now needs $250,000 sprayer unit.
That's right.
Okay, to go and put, to be able to act on this data. So while I think that there is still agricultural applications, I think the 8 years that we've had to wait for the FAA to come up with Section 107, we've actually lost the momentum. And with commodity prices, by the time they're back up, we're going to start to see the satellite companies will have rolled out competing services, which will be extremely streamlined, etc., and the growers will get the information. That's not saying, exactly. Well, it doesn't have to be high resolution. We said this to Gary. It needs to be about 12 inches, 1 foot resolution. So you can differentiate rows. Now, that isn't saying that there aren't agricultural applications for UAVs, crop scouting, insurance applications, etc. But you have to keep them in context. So it's not this huge game-changing $85 million industry, etc. It just isn't. Especially if you consider with the reduction in the cost of the technology. So you go and buy a $1,000 Phantom 4, you can start to do great work now. You don't have to spend $35,000 on hardware. So where are these numbers going to come from? I don't know.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. So those numbers in Spence were probably largely framed with $20,000 or $30,000 airframes. So yes, immediately it's perhaps a 30th of the value of that whole market. Then,
I mean, if you think about it, and this leads into 2017 as well. So, how many of the features that we're finding in your Mavics, etc., are now going to start to spread to other Chinese manufactured clone systems? And how long can DJI keep this up and be profitable? Okay, I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
That's I don't know. Anyone else want to answer that?
Well, I can talk about the economics of where DJI is in regards to the market share, because we did a market share study this year and looked at, the market share across the various price points and what others would have to do to scale to get to their capabilities. I think one of the difficult things and the only company that looks like it's in sight is MMC, right? Because they have a huge R&D. We're not sure what's going to happen with Unique because there seems to be a little bit of chaos going on internally within Unique. They haven't figured out what direction they want to go. Do they want to go upscale? Do they want to go downscale into consumer? They're still kind of groping. At least they are in the US. But as far as the market share of DJI and the amount of employees, 1,500 employees who are in R&D, and there's an R&D facility both in China and now in Palo Alto, California, it's going to be hard to catch. It's going to be hard to catch because the R&D comes in two places. It comes both in the machine capabilities and in the apps and in the software capability and its integration. It was at the DJI Airworks conference just recently in San Francisco, just a few weeks ago. And their strategy for getting into enterprise is quite interesting. They're partnering. They're decided that they're not going to do it themselves. In other words, they're not going to come up with complete turnkey solutions. They're going to put the SDK out there like they have been, but get more feedback and more partnerships going where people are working with the SDK to do things like integration with LiDAR, the ability to create a LAS file, which is a very complex problem to solve. So they're going after complex problems. Whether there's another company that has the brand recognition, the market awareness, the R&D capability, manufacturer scalability. In 2016, we saw the Tanker 3D Robotics, so we know, and they were the closest competitor. We saw them tank. Could another Chinese company do it? Nothing is impossible, but whether it's probable or not, put me in the doubter character. We think, we think they've won. We think they've won the majority market share, and we think
I see that they
to go in that direction.
I see that today, I think it was today or much earlier or late last night over there, they've announced a link up with RC Groups, which is quite clever. The engineers are going to be answering questions there. And if you want a more, in some ways knowledgeable and in a lot of ways thick as bricks group, then go there. But all sides of the coin are there, and they're going to get massive feedback. So
sure.
I love RC. I didn't mean to have a dig at RC Groups. I like RC Groups. But I think that's very clever. And if they get support running in there, and if they get the people of RC Groups properly behind them, behind the engineers, perhaps a group of 10 engineers that they'll pick as their media faces, perhaps. If I was them, that's what I'd be doing. Then they're going to get a lot of goodwill out of that in the end, and that's going to make it very hard for others. That other Chinese company has got to now do that as well. They've got to get into RC Groups, and they've got to get people behind them. So DJI are doing they're doing everything right at the moment, aren't they? They can't seem to put a foot wrong. I'm sure some technology will come along. Somebody will come along with a new idea, and that will change things, and DJI won't have it.
Well, interesting to make one other point is that when we heard that, when DJI makes an announcement, when they announced the Mavic and when they announced the Phantom Pro and the Inspire 2, that what happened is it sucked the wind out of the room. orders for the other companies just dropped to nothing. And that's only, remember, these were pre-orders. These weren't shipping units. It was people were betting on it. So boy, that says a lot about the market viability of and their command of presence, that is brand mindshare within the community, that's going to be hard to beat. So somebody else has to capture that as well.
Now my feeling is that there's going to be an erosion, though, at least on the consumer side, where you get individuals that go out to buy a unit for Christmas, let's say, and they're presented with a range of technologies that, let's say that these DJI Phantom clones that are out there, and they're not savvy enough to go, okay, well, we want the DJI unit. They want to get the return to home feature, and it's in all of those different brands. Or they want the indoor hover in place capability, and it's in 3 of those brands. Because, we sat down around the table at Christmas time, and one of the families that purchased a drone for their child for Christmas. And they couldn't tell me what brand it was. It was the Apple drone. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. They didn't know what they had actually purchased. And it was very eye-opening that they wanted the drone, but they honestly didn't know about DJI. They didn't know about Parrot. They had no clue. They just bought this white drone. Now, that white drone could have been a DJI, or it could have been one of the 10 knockoffs of the Phantom that are out there. So my feeling is that how long can DJI keep this up with the rest of the Chinese clone manufacturers out there nipping at their heels consistently for that uneducated consumer market? I don't know.
Well, aren't we at peak consumer drone this Christmas? Isn't this it? Aren't we at peak now?
I would think,
shaking head there.
I think we're getting pretty close, and there are going to certainly be a lot of replacements because of the flyaways that just occurred. There's no question. But I think one of the things that's going to dictate where DJI is going, we'll see if DJI comes up with a fixed wing. Because what we're seeing now, and I'm getting a lot of this out here in the field with first responders and even professionals, is that technical limitation of propulsion and battery power for a copter. You've really, when you get right down to it, you've got 20 minutes of flying time with a useful payload, maybe 15 minutes with a larger payload. And that's a restriction that people are going to start chafing against once they get used to using these things on a regular basis. They're going to want them to fly longer. They're going to want them to stay in the air for a long time. Yep. We're already seeing.
Yep.
And I think until they come up with a propellerless propulsion system, which I have no doubt that something like that is going to happen. Somebody will come up with it. It may not be in my lifetime, but it'll be anti-grav little pods on the side. That people are going to start making the move over to longer duration platforms. That's just the way I see 2017 going.
Yeah. You don't think battery life is going to... If that happens, I see there'll be a short window where, yes, fixed wing and I love wings as well. Yeah, I even made one today. I love wings. Nothing wrong with wings. But don't you think there'll be a point where battery technology will overtake that and make that redundant? So 30 minutes with the P4P, if they get that up to 40 minutes, if the Phantom 5 does 40 minutes, then there's no reason to buy an EB. Right. That will destroy the EB's market. Yeah. For instance.
I think not. I think not, because then you'd start playing against the environmental issues that you're up against. And I don't care. A copter is not going to carry a payload as effectively or efficiently as a fixed wing. It's just physics. I mean, it's not. I like one better than the other. It's just physics, and that's why we got to.
And with that, I'll show you the ceiling. I'll get you. I'll show you my ceiling. Yes.
That's good.
Well, if you want to have a protest vote, then that's the way to do it. Is that going to be the protest vote of 2017? Showing ceilings. I'll show you my ceiling. We've got a circular ceiling. There we are. It's made of thatch. Yeah, but I think flying wings are coming. I think Parrot's been quite clever. They're leading the way a little bit, and I think they sort of shot maybe it's a warning shot across the bow to Sense Fly to come up with a cheaper, better wing, because CEB is just nuts for price. It's absolutely mad.
Yeah, but that's commercially interesting because they're all owned by the same person.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think they're running little fiefdoms, from what I understand.
Yeah,
and I think there's quite a bit of company dynamics there, back and forth between the different people.
So Gary, you say that 2017 is the year of the wing. I think there's a caveat. I think this is going to be the year of the hybrid. Okay. The year of the hybrid, i.e., fixed wing with VTOL capability. Okay, we just see more of them out there. Okay.
Yeah, I just can't. I expect Gene shares my sort of thought on this. Is I just can't get over. I can't get over wasting all that energy lifting 4 motors around for an hour. Just find a better place to land. You've got a wing. You can fly in. You can fly in from 2 minutes away in an appropriate area.
It comes back to your operators. We're not talking about people that want to learn to fly and operate them proficiently and well. They want the instant gratification of 6 hours worth of endurance and the capability to land it within 20 square feet. Because training is going to become a large cost in owning and operating a UAS system.
Yeah, training is, and training and
doing as well. And when you throw a hybrid in on top of it, you've got to learn, count them, 2 different ways of flying.
No, Gene, because the idea is not that the unit hovers and you use it for hovering. It's purely takeoff and landing, or purely landing. That's it.
Right. Well,
I looked at.
Right?
Oh, not that AeroVironment thing. Ugh. Oh, it's a horrible thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
So let me make a point about fixed wing, and this is just around the studies that we see, the share of what people use drones for, fixed wing and multi-rotor. Fixed wing is only somewhere between 15 and 18% of sales. Everything else is multi-rotor, and the majority of that is quadcopter. So that's just sales of drones across all price points. And what we see is that there still is the majority of why people buy a drone. When you ask them, don't ask them a question whether it's fixed wing or quadcopter. Ask them why they bought their drone. It's to do film and video, and that's either for hobby or for commercial purposes. That accounts for about 65% of all the use of drones. So it's to do photography and video. Now,
but then,
sorry. The other statistic that we see is that the film, photo, and video market for commercial purposes, and again, remember that's $1,000 and up. The biggest market, film, photo, and video, isn't saturated yet. Everyone thinks it is because that's when the quadcopters first came out. People putting GoPros on them and doing film and photo and video, and and from there on, they went up with microcopter, and they went up. DJI sort of came in late a little bit on that. People were putting cameras on gimbals to do basic photography and video, and that still is. And this, one of our predictions for 2017 is that we'll see a basic increase in certain areas like real estate, like the use for first responders. Not a huge uptick, but sort of an organic growth. And then film, photo, and video only now is digital photography. That's an online review of cameras. They have figured out that drones are cameras, right? And now photographers are beginning to get a clear sense of what drones can do, and they're adding them to their bag. There is no difference to them between spending $1,500 on a Phantom 4 Pro that has a 20.1 megapixel still camera in it, which is good enough for the work that they're doing, and a telephoto lens that costs $1,500. But for them, it's just another tool in the toolkit. And my leading indicator for this is now beginning to see the people who review cameras online on YouTube, people like Tony Northrup. They go and they're now recommending drones, and they're beginning to talk about drones and the features and the capabilities. And they're actually beginning to talk about them in terms of what DJI is doing with software to run the drone, and what other camera companies like Nikon and Sony and the rest of them aren't doing in their land cameras. So in some ways, drones are more innovative in some ways than actual land use cameras that you would traditionally use for professional photographers. So photographers are beginning to look at it. We think 2017 is going to be another year where there will be an uptake of photographers and videographers buying prosumer and above grade drones. That's what we see.
All right. Well, let's throw a spanner into that, or something I think immediately when talking like that is, so how many of those people buying will still be using and making money with them in 6 months' time versus somebody who's got a inspection task in a dangerous area? I have a hunch that you're going to see, it's a bit like I could be a wedding photographer because I've just bought a digital SLR and now I'm the world's best photographer. But then I'll go out of business very quickly. So sales is one thing. I mean, I guess I'd like to know the data of who's still using the tool at the end of a year, and are they still using them in 2 years' time? I'd like to see the longevity of it. I suppose on a weekend in America, there's thousands of kids playing American football out on fields, and only a small number of them make it to the NFL or whatever it is that goes through. And that's going to be the same with photographers. You know, only a handful of them are going to make money out of it. So anyway, that's just my thought about that analogy against sales of a thing against continuous use, I suppose. Did that make any sense? I don't know if that made any sense.
Yeah. No, it did, and I agree with you. And I think one of the things, though, that we see, at least in the people we interview and talk to, is that it's not a big deal if they don't use it for 6 months. That's not a big deal. They only spent $1,200 on it. Again, it's just like their telephoto lens. It's only a lens you use in certain situations. So it's just an add-on to their additional bag of tricks. Right.
Are they seeing? Do you think they're going to see any resistance because of? I'm sorry, I'm not letting other people talk. You think they're seeing any resistance because of regulations, 107, stuff like that? Have they heard about 107?
Yes, they have heard about it, but our sense is that many of them are still waiting. They're using them. The rogue operators have been there from day one. So you know, and they understand the risk, and they're taking the risk and just going, well, you know what? I'm only using it this one time because my client wants a picture of the building, indoor and outdoor, and you know, I'm just going to go up. I'm going to make one flight, and that's it.
I think we should. Ramsey, go on.
I made $2,000 on that gig that day, right? So I long since paid for my Phantom.
Yeah. Matt, let's get Matt in there. He's not jumping in or saying anything. Matt over there in North Dakota, I think it is. You can help us. Yeah. And Matt's friend, Mr. Scope, a Sky and Scope. Yeah. What you can help people with 107, I think. Tell us your news and views about 107 land.
Well, so we've covered a wide gamut so far of what's going on in 2017. I think that it is, like Colin said and Gene said, it's going to be the make or break year for egg. And it's actually kind of interesting for egg specifically with DJI. 2017 is definitely going to be another year of DJI. They're running up the score on everyone. But in terms of 107 and DJI and egg, they just came out with the Agris. And so the problem is that 107 waivers don't allow for spraying yet. And people would still have to go under this section 333 to apply for the right to go out and spray in egg. So
they're so backed up right now. I mean, you're not even going to see this season probably people get the waivers to let them do it this year.
What about EPA?
By the way, this is Mike Johnson. He's our director of flight operations at SkySkopes. He's an ex-Global Hawk pilot for the United States Air Force.
Good on you, bro.
Thanks.
Rory just mentioned the EPA concerns with the spraying, I think, Rory?
Yeah. Have you guys run into anything? Because as far as I understand it, for traditional applicators, aircraft-based applicators, there are a whole bunch of EPA rules that come into play. You can't just go and spray stuff from an aircraft. And I would say that
exactly.
The EPA hasn't even, they're not even aware that drones with sprayers are coming. And once they get wind of it, we're going to go, oh, ban, sorry, you're not allowed to do that until we figure this one out, just like we went through with US.
Yeah.
So I think it's an interesting point, and we've looked into it, and we've discussed it with people such as one of the frequent attendees on this channel, Mr. Ruprecht. We'll make it next time, but so it's par for the course in terms of getting permissions for the spraying. So first you'd have to get the Section 333 waiver. Then you'd have to work with the Flight Standard District Office, your local FSDO, to get permission to fly. Of course, you're going to have to pay for the bird. And then you have to get the license from the FSDO to do spraying aerial applications in egg. And then I think that there's another one, because that's just for, say, flying with water to water crops. And then there's another one on top of that if you want to actually do pesticides or herbicides or something along those lines. And you have to do every one in order. The length of time it takes to get these permissions can be, and then you're going to see something come out maybe for Part 107, where now Part 107 is waiverable for egg, and we'll see what shortfalls that causes in the process.
But I'm not sure how many is what can this DJI thing carry? About 10-15 liters worth of stuff to spray? What sort of area are you talking about? Surely you could only be spraying high value crops which are in small areas of the states, because a wheat field is going to be gone and poof, gone. Oh, hang on, we'll go back again and get another. Oh, and another. And so you're almost self-selecting what you can spray, because it's going to be very limited. Again, not making a lot of sense. What do you see? Perhaps you've thought about it, Matt. You must have done. What can you see being sprayed from these things?
So, Mike talking here. One of the things that we're kind of thinking the market is going to go towards is not so much like a SkySkopes or someone else kind of jumping in and saying, oh, I'll try to spray your field, but it's going to be more of localized agronomists or small co-ops who are going to, invest in this technology, and, they're doing their normal survey of a field, and they just see some troubled areas, and it's just kind of for a spot. Okay, we're just going to spray that one spot. There's some sort of insect there. There's some sort of disease. We'll just do a micro application. So there's still going to be the macro applications with low flying aircrafts that are keep doing the entire fields, and this would just kind of be my agronomist is checking my field every week or so, and he just found this one spot.
But
let's not spend all the crop duster.
But how is that easily going to be a bloke with a hoe walking into the field? Who's perhaps you've got your Phantom 3 and you've seen the spot from your Phantom 3, and a chap walks in with a spade and a hoe and just removes the weed. Because if I have to wait a year to get all the paperwork to sort it out, surely that's a painful. Sorry, I'm being the devil's advocate.
Yeah, and that's where we see it. We're kind of holding off on what's going to happen this year with egg. We're not even really jumping in. One of the things that we're thinking is going to be bigger this year, especially with all these individuals, photographers, maybe farmers want to get into it, is the training aspect. So they go buy something, they want to know how to use it, and they want to know how to use it fast, versus kind of the trial and error that most of us are going through right now.
And that's another 2017 thing. We're going to see a lot more training. 2017 might be the year of training or something along those lines, but we're seeing all these schools pop up.
Yep.
Not just private companies, but companies or entities such as Kansas State and UND. Other colleges and universities are starting to emulate the bachelor programs and others.
I think you're right, and I think it is going to be the year of training. Now, I'm sorry, I've forgotten your colleague's name already. I'm dreadful, but I'm going to put you on the spot now as an ex-Global Hawk pilot. One of the things that has been touted in Europe, and I can really see it'll happen, and it'll knock a load of the smaller markets out the way, is the makers of Global Hawks and the bigger platforms are very keen to sell them into the civilian market, to set up orbits, multiple orbits over Europe, and then sell the data. If there's a fire, the fire service buys the time on site. If a farmer needs whatever he needs, he'll buy that service. And I think that has the potential, if there's multiple orbits happening for 24 hours a day, of wiping out a lot of the smaller businesses, because you'll buy the data cheaper. It'll come off the Global Hawk cheaper. Go on, I've put you on the spot. What's your thoughts on that sort of thing? Come on, tell us something from the inside. No, he's not gonna. That didn't work, did it?
That would be Mr. Scopes.
Yeah.
No comment on the Global Hawk doing that over Europe? But he was
no comment. Yeah.
Maybe it's video froze. I think it's video froze.
That was. It's amazing.
I think you scared them off, Gary.
It's amazing what the Defense Department can do, isn't it? You just mention it, and what happens? It's amazing. But I've seen that argued lots of times, and I've seen lots of grown-ups talk about doing that, and that makes, if you think about it, makes absolute sense, because it makes the operating cost of the thing disappear if each service can buy the data that it requires, and that makes a lot of sense.
It makes
$3,000 an hour. That they're going to have to work on that.
Yeah, but I mean, if I'm a farmer, it can be over my farm every day, and they'll sell me that data for peanuts. And at the same time, the sensors looking over at that small town over there is doing this, is doing the coastal patrol. I can see that coming, and I can see that being a threat to the small market that the small market hasn't spotted.
I totally agree with you, Gary, and at least the ag sector, you could have aircraft based in the Corn Belt in the Midwest going 24/7, partially subsidized by the federal government, providing this data to farmers, and every other application in between. And that won't even impact UAS operators. That's going to impact your traditional manned aircraft doing aerial surveys, etc. And why I'm so pro is because I've just found a very beautiful little airport in southern Illinois where that would be perfect for.
Oh, you can get yourself one then. But because if they've got a problem with those big platforms, they've made enough. They've made enough of them. The forces aren't buying more because there's enough of them. Sandy wars are ending, and so they have a problem with that size of platform. So they're looking for things for them to do. But let's move away from that to a more important subject, and that is the knitting of knitwear for drones. I was very impressed with that today. Did you see that, Gene?
Knitwear?
Knitwear, yeah. Come on. I mean, it's winter up there. I think it's very important. It's a lady in San Francisco, and it was an art project, but I thought it was very cool, actually, and I suppose the sense of...
I'm going to have to jump off and take a look at that one.
You just got to see the knitwear for drones. I think it was very cool, and it had a very weirdly, instantly, it did make the things look nicer and more cuddly and lovable and stuff like that.
I did see this. Of course, they look cuddly and look like Grandma's coaster.
Yeah. So what harm can they do?
Get it into an Afghan somewhere.
I think she should be making team colors.
There you go.
Team colors, yeah.
Yeah.
Colors.
There you go.
Yeah.
Colors.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's another market. I think it's very clever, and it's I guarantee that'll be all over the press tomorrow. It's a bit of a slow starter, it seems, but well, no, it won't because of all the sad news that's been happening. But in a normal news day, it probably would. What was I've written very badly. The other thing I was going to talk about here. I cannot read what I was going to say. Anyone else help me out? What else should we talk about, people?
Well,
we're back up. Wait.
No, it's all right. I won't ask again what I asked. I understand what happens.
Got cut off. No, so back to your question. I answered it mostly before we realized that we were cut off. So I think where that's going to help out, just the cost of operating Global Hawk, is still going to be in the $15,000 to $20,000 an hour range. So you're not going to see the individual farmers or someone of that nature who's going to use that data. It's going to have to be a larger company or co-op who takes that data and then, even digs down further. They can get a 12-inch, resolution on it or better, and then they're going to have to resell that, at a smaller cost to farmers or to just kind of local municipalities. So it's have to go through someone.
But 12 inches is exactly Rory's measurements. Sorry, Rory's resolution that's required.
But I think there's good value in that.
Is what?
Good work, Rory.
There's value.
But it's but I think $30,000 an hour amongst multiple users that because it would be flying anyway in its government role. So I can't see that would be a lot of money for a private company because in an hour, without giving away any secrets, how much imaging could that Global Hawk could have done a whole state or how many miles could it have done?
It can do a bunch. It can cover a huge area. Half a state or something like that. Just
So
we're talking about just square miles easy.
So we put that into small phantom size or even flying wings, which we love here. You're talking hundreds and hundreds of individual flights for a single SUAS.
Me.
Go on, you. Yes, you.
We calculated it. We actually calculated it, and we calculated that to cover the entire Corn Belt, the 190 million acres in a season would require 30,000 man days, or 30,000 flights. Yeah, it was something astronomical. So
flying what sort of platform? With what sort of platform?
We calculated it on a fixed wing, doing 6,000 acres a day.
Wow.
Okay.
So that's about right.
Yeah. Something like Global Hawk, but the other platforms out there that are smaller and cheaper, that there are plenty of them around, and we'll probably start to see stuff like that on a county or regional basis. You're going to find cities start looking at unmanned systems for traffic control. Not that they're cheaper than putting a guy in a Cessna, okay, but they're cooler, right? And in the future, everything's going to be robotic. So, people will ignore the commercial rationales and they'll look at these things. and hopefully they continue to do that because that's how we're going to make a living, right? And not everything we do is, pragmatic. So,
and at the end of the day, it always comes back to, and I've said this so many times in this, that the flying these things used to be really, really hard. Just keeping up the right way was really, really hard. We've moved away from that. We can keep them up the right way, and we can tell them where to go now. So it's turned to data. We're moving away from the platform that is immaterial, really. We're talking about data and how to turn images of whatever sort into actionable data, and that's where the excitement is, really. I mean, why aren't there sensors on every air? There used to be, didn't there, back in the, maybe there will be now we're getting back to the Cold War, back to my youth, but there used to be cameras on all the airliners going back and forth to Russia, taking stuff all the time, and work both ways. Why aren't there multiple cameras on multiple airliners and just gathering data, pulling in the data?
Well, you talk about being pragmatic. I've never understood why people that are doing aerial application, spraying, why aren't they doing aerial mapping at the same time? They're there, right? It's just weird stuff like that. And then I've also, with the industry, I've never quite understood, everybody's fixated with visual sensors, LiDAR, things like that. But there are other cool applications that you can do with UAVs that aren't in the visual spectrum.
Yeah.
So we're going to start to see some niche applications, I think, in 2017. That's going to, why don't we have UAVs with robotic arms that can go and change the light bulb at the top of that tower type of deal? I mean,
did you see there was a YouTube this morning that came out with an individual that changed the light bulb?
Yeah.
So now it's all the jokes will start. How many drones does it take to change a light bulb?
Yeah.
But isn't one of the VBATs one of those tail sitters has an arm, doesn't it? One of those big that has a robotic arm. Yeah. Don't know what have you flown that thing, Gene?
No, I haven't flown, but I know Steve Morris and the guys that I speak with, the guys that purchased MLB Co. all the time. I've still got some super bat blood in me, I guess, but I haven't had the opportunity to fly one of those. I still think they're pretty much working with DARPA on the testing of that, but there's been some interesting videos out there of it snatching stuff off of ladders.
Yeah, I think yes, it's the window cleaning one. I think I think that there's some interesting secret stuff going on at the moment. Some very interesting secret stuff out there, and it'd be very interesting to know exactly what they're doing. Again, I'm looking down on my notes. And anybody else, as we're coming up to the top of this hour, has anybody else got anything that's caught their eye this week that they'd like to talk about?
Did you see where the airlines are there's an individual that is going to try to get the airlines to be a satellite mesh net?
Yes, I did see that. Yeah. That makes this. It's obvious, isn't it? Really, it's just one of those obvious things. Why hasn't that been done? And then the ADS-B from satellite. That's also interesting. That seems to be really gaining ground now as well. Closing those coverage gaps.
Well, you can get Mode C as small as 75 grams now, and Mode Bs are down to 30 grams. Mode B passives. So there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't have sense and avoid on, if not this year, widespread. It should be, 2018. It should be widespread.
But isn't that reason AOPA and AOPA members refusing to fit it into their aircraft?
Yeah.
Well, if you can.
Yeah, the mandate doesn't come till 2020, right? That's when GA is required to have a transponder out. So ADS-B out. They are not required to have ADS-B in. I think that's one thing that bothers me the most about ADS-B, talk of ADS-B, going to satellites, etc. You can have all this signals out you want, but unless somebody can see it, that they have ADS-B in, it does no good.
Well,
but that's one of those
industry that's going to lead the ADS-B charge, because we're looking for sense and avoid. We're trying to get something out there that will be acceptable, and I think it's going to be us that are going to be putting them on and saying, look, we can see each other. You know, you should be able to see us.
Yeah, I think that you're going to have it if beyond visual line of sight applications are going to.
Yeah, absolutely essential.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something that we should probably make mention quickly here, just from our end, just to bring up. Last week, I met with the Chief of Staff of the Air Force at Grand Sky, and with one of our senators, Senator John Hoeven, and they made an announcement that the FAA is going to be coming out with the beyond visual line of sight permissions. We don't know what aircraft or exactly when, but probably within the next couple of days through the Northern Plains UAS test site. So if you guys hadn't seen that, that's pretty fresh off the presses right there. And I can literally from my window see our test site. So it's exciting times, I think, for us at SkySkopes and for us pretty much in the UAS industry, because we're finally starting to realize these beyond visual line of sight permissions, and that's going to be a huge factor in 2017 going forward too. So, did you guys see that?
Yeah, I think we ran it as well. So, is it going to be a huge factor? Is that where the money is being made, or is it? Colin thinks it's being made with photographers and stuff like that. That's all.
Well,
really close in.
One of the things that you're going to have to consider is that the highest yield of dollars out there is going to be in the commercial side. It's not going to be the hobbyist out there that's, you know, going and buying a $1,500 drone rather than, you know, a camera because he can, you know, make it track him when he's on his motorcycle. It's going to be the guys out there that are flying the Super Bats or the Penguins or whatever on the 300-mile runs of utility lines. I mean, they're going to make a bucket full of money on one run because it takes a bucket full of money to send a manned aircraft down that same 300 miles.
And that's what they're already doing in France, out to 100 kilometers. They have permission to go to 100 kilometers in France. So it's already happening.
But Gary, what you also have to keep in mind is beyond visual line of sight, for something the size of the Phantom, we've said it again on the show, is literally a quarter of a mile. So even if you want to survey 1,000 acres or 1,000 hectares with something small, you're still going to be required to get that kind of waiver or have the spotters, etc. So there's plenty of potential for beyond visual line of sight up there.
So is that another reason for you to buy that Global Hawk? Because then obviously it's much bigger, so you can see it a lot further away. Yeah.
There's something to be said for that.
No.
Get a larger airplane, you can see it further away.
Yes. Well, it's interesting that you don't seem to put a number on visual line of sight over there. It's 500 meters in the UK. There's a number. There's no size. It's a bit weird, isn't it? Because you could do that. Just build an enormous platform. There's
They put a number on it here, Gary. It's like 3,000 feet.
Wow. Really? I didn't know that. I stand corrected. Well, then you've got flipping good eyes.
Yeah, if you can see a Phantom at 3,000 feet, you're doing pretty good.
There should be all manner of other jobs that you can do. And why on earth would you be wasting your fantastic eyesight flying drones? That's ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. Tell me, now that you've got so many, did I see there's 23,000 licensed or 107, somewhere like that, 20-something thousand. How much do they all getting paid?
Well, that's where it's interesting, right? Yeah. What do you say?
Oh, yeah. You mean the $2.50 an hour jobs?
Yeah. I again, it's one of those things that came up in a Google search that I have regular going. I see the ads that end up in Craigslist for $10 to $11 an hour. Some as high as $40 an hour for drone pilots. They're advertisements on Craigslist for drone pilots.
And I'm not from America. What's the going rate if I worked, because I'm not American, if I worked in a 7-Eleven, what's the going rate, an hourly rate to work in a burger joint or something?
Well, it depends on what state you're in, because some of them, mandatory $15 an hour jobs. But I think in Texas the minimum wage is $8.25.
Okay. So could we say there's a sort of a range of 8 to 15 then, or something like that? Would it be in that sphere?
Well, let's put it this way. We have down here in Texas, we have this little problem with the undocumented workers, and they hang out by the Lowe's and by the church here in my little town, and you can go get them, and they get $12 an hour plus lunch.
Okay, so at the end of the day, though, that guy flying an RPA at $10 an hour is operating below your sort of minimum wage or whatever there.
Do you think he has insurance?
Oh, of course he does. I mean, come on, and the 107 and everything.
For his
That's
car.
outrageous. What car?
His car insurance covers it good.
Sure he does.
It's sort of here in South Africa we have absolutely crazy regulations for RPA flying, and we have a situation where there are 10 there's eight now, count them, 8 in nearly 2 years of legislation, 8 legal companies, and we have 300 licensed pilots. So it's just ridiculous, and the sale of training here is, to my mind, selling false hope. Because there really isn't a big, you're not going to earn a fortune. Do you think there's an element of that in the States?
Yeah, if there's not, I think what you're going to see is a lot of the 107s are using it as an adjunct to their regular job.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those things that if it'll enhance what you do, for example, like the firefighters, the first responders, we fight fires and we prevent crime and we save people first. And then the drone is something that can certainly help us out and make our lives a lot easier. But you don't go out and train to be a drone pilot to be a firefighter, at least not yet.
Yeah, there's some despicable practices up there, Gary, that have been going on for a while when it comes to training. A lot of entities popped up when we were still under the COA, and then 333, and sold people really false hope, as he said. I mean, I met an elderly gentleman, probably approaching 80, who came to me asking for a job as a pilot, and he had literally only picked up a transmitter during the course that he had paid $1,500.
I think Colin can probably confirm this, but I'm sure it was just as recent as last year. They were projecting salaries for drone pilots in the high 5-figure range.
That's right. Yeah, $85,000 range. Yeah, and $120 for engineers.
There you go.
$75,000 to $85,000 for a drone pilot. And so it depends on how you look at that. In a company where they're standing up an operation where they have an aviation department, and let's say you're a big GIS company, you're one of the big ones like Bechtel and the rest of them, and you are using them on a regular basis within your company, and there's plenty of them, and they use Drone Deploy, and have met and talked to these companies. They're beginning to stand up operations, and those are salaried employees, right? And those are operations, and those people do make that much money, right? Anywhere from $75,000 to $85,000, and probably somebody who's 125 or 120, 125, who's actually running the whole department, right? So that exists. Now, does it exist in volume? Right, that's a different story, and I think that's where you start getting into where these are just things that are doing adjunct to their additional business. That's not their salary for 100% drone operations. That's a different deal.
So will 2017 be the year of realistic salary expectations? I wonder if that's going to be in the AU. I wonder if the AUVSI mentioned salaries again this time.
Well, that's one of the things we're going to research, Gary. This is on. I have a research agenda for 2017, and that is at the top of the list. It's two things. It's training, where are people putting their efforts, and what do people really need to be trained in, and what about that? What's the expectations and the costs, and the agenda. And then the second thing is, how much are people making, either internally for a company, how many hours are they putting and applying to drone operations? And then those who are independents, that's 2 guys in a drone or 1 guy and 2 drones, that's the generic name of the company. You know, how much are they making and what are they doing? And what applications, what industry are they in now, and what industry do they want to go and do service for? So that's another piece of research that we're going to do, besides the one we're going to do on, that we're going to continue last year, which is where are people trying drones and what are they using them for in a generic sense. So throughout the year, we'll have research on
that. Not again.
Did we lose Gary?
It looks like we lost Gary.
Yeah, it's frozen.
Yep.
Okay, reboot, Gary, if you can hear
We're still
it.
live.
They got him now.
They got him.
Yep.
He's got a nice smile on his face, though.
Hey, Colin, while you're on here, just a quick question for you. Have you done any research into what you think fair market salary is for a small UAS full-time pilot?
No, I don't. But that is one of the research that we want to do is drone services. We want to look at that. We want to ask people, you know, what their current salary is, what they want it to be, and that's a 1 or 2 questions within a survey that we'll do. So, you know, hopefully at some point in 2017 we'll have that piece of research out.
Yeah, we'd love to circle back with you and see what your research is on that, and we'd be happy to participate in any kind of a survey. We've got over 20 pilots, not all of them full time, but you know, we'd love to work with you on something like that, because it's important to see what pilots should be making, and you know, that's the most valuable thing to us is a full-time, usually a UAS degree holding full-time availability pilot. So that would be extremely important to us to hear what your findings would be.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Matt.
Growing up, aren't we, as an industry? Growing up quickly. There's been some growing pains, but it's coming. So I don't know if you noticed there, the internet dropped out for me. I'm sure you all carried on just fine. So well done, everybody. Very good. Well done. It's coming up to 15:15. Yeah. Gene, what's that in your hand there? You're deliberately fiddling. You are deliberately fiddling with a large thing in your hand. Tell us about it.
We're moving up. We're flying some pretty large airplanes over here. I've actually got one of the Tacron 160s. I've got one that's like that big around too. That we're doing. Hello, somebody answered the phone.
Yeah, is that your phone?
I don't have a phone.
I don't have a phone. I don't know where that came from. It's the ethereal phone. It's like, oh, is it yours? Is it?
No, so we've got the Greyhawk that's coming from. We've tested the prototypes on it. I'm sure you saw that. The Greyhawk looks a lot like the Predator, and it's a big airplane. So we're upping the motor sizes. We're up to 3.5 horses now on the motors.
And that's all electric.
All electric, yep. And we've got our solar project. I'm still, when I get enough time, I'm going to put the Alta Devices solar cells on, and we're going to fly all day just to say we did it. But
yeah,
there we go, pushing that, waiting for the beyond line of sight to come, because the solar cells are going to make it with an electric, and then you got a nice clean footprint, low carbon. You can fly for a long way, and for the desert areas where they're crying for this stuff, that's going to be the place to take it. So yeah, sorry, I was fiddling. So yeah,
it's all right. It's fine. And Rory, you've been building a wing. Is that nearby, or is that just far away?
Yeah, it's in the background there. It's that red thing up in the corner.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Gonna go and fly that when it's warm enough outside. But that's just a little something to play with, and hopefully get my children interested, which they're not. They're just this is dad's stuff, and they don't even come into my office. But yeah, I've got a plan I'm hoping for 2017 to build a very large flying wing based on kite building techniques.
Yeah.
I want to basically build a large electric hang glider without the person hanging underneath.
Oh, like a Regalo wing?
Yeah, just for the fun of it, because I'm really intrigued. I want to kind of use old school building techniques with modern materials. So I want to kind of go away from foam and go back to replace the balsa wood and the paper with carbon fiber and ripstop nylon, etc. Not because I think that there's really much benefit, but it's just as an exercise to build that very large, light flying wing, and then see what we can pack on it.
Do you remember there was that police regalo, wasn't there, years ago? I'm trying hard to remember. It was a big thing, wasn't it? And they got shut down for operating it. So wasn't that in your...
Yeah, that was when I was out in California. It wasn't that big, so it was probably about the size of a Skywalker.
Oh, okay. My bad.
It was ready, but yeah, similar to that. So if you can envisage a hang glider, but with a bottom surface as well, along those lines, but as a flying wing. Because I kind of like the idea that you can have something that you can just pull the skin of the wing back over the bag and then disassemble it really quickly, and it's really fun.
I've thought about that, and I've even looked at the size of postal tubes. Anything that would go in a postal tube.
Yeah.
And, just for the transport side of the thing. But yeah, there's many ways to skin a cat, but that'll be quite slow moving, won't it?
Yeah.
It's not intended to be fast. Although I think that wind penetration should still be pretty good by comparison to some of the airframes that are out there. And really a nice, big, slow moving wing that we can put things in.
See from miles away. You can see it
from miles away,
feet away, whatever it is. Yeah.
And keep it under the FAA's nice and big, but still under the weight restrictions.
55 pounds. You'd probably almost have a real hang glider for 55 pounds. I don't know what they weigh, but they're not a lot much.
You could probably do a two-thirds scale on that. Anyway, that's what I'd like to do. We've got the sewing machine. My daughter's promised to help me sew it, and we'll see. Okay.
I've got to. I'm also thinking of a couple of builds for 2017. Believe it or not, somebody has actually asked me if I can help them make a delivery drone. So I'm going to have a go at that. yeah. So yeah, and amazingly, what the company delivers switches, it fuses switches and stuff like that. It's just like, why? Anyway, I don't understand why.
Sorry, the company's not based in Lesotho, is it, Gary? And they're not flying stuff in?
I have no idea what you're referring to or alluding to. Anyway, I can't believe to imagine what you're trying to suggest.
Wasn't Chris Anderson at one stage approached to build the drone by some shady gents in Mexico, and he declined because they wanted to deliver things to the United States?
I think at the end of the day, Flirtley said they've had 77 deliveries into 7-Elevens. So we're very clever, 77 into 7-Eleven or whatever it was. I bet you there's some Mexican companies have had far more than 77 deliveries into the USA. I guarantee it. Didn't they have a submarine? Didn't I see they even made a submarine or something? Yeah.
Submarines, tunnels, ladders, you name it.
Yeah, it's going to happen, isn't it? So yeah, that, and I also want to do some more, some work with autonomous soaring. I quite enjoy that. It works very, very nicely. So that's my build projects for 2017. I hope, and I hope to actually get the time to do it. That's the thing. And what was that other big motor you had there, Gene?
I mean, these things are getting out of hand. I mean,
is that what make is that?
It is a Boundless. This is
Oh,
a Boundless. It is a CL80, 210 kV, but you can run this thing up to what, like 65 volts.
wow. And what size prop you putting on that?
Any size you want. Now, I think this one's about a 22.
Right, right. And will you be running wood or carbon fiber with that?
I'm scared to run it at all, to be honest.
Yeah, I think and the reason I asked that is I would be scared if I had carbon fiber on that. I would be scared.
With anything, anytime you get over 3.5 horses, it's wood. You're running it.
Yeah,
I've pulling it off of there. That's a lot of weight out there to be going, 9,600 RPMs.
I personally, I don't see the benefit in a carbon fiber. I don't think the benefit of carbon fiber and performance outweighs the danger. I think the danger level just goes through the roof, and it makes 2 or 3% difference or something like that in the propeller. And it's like,
wood is
wood. Yeah, no, I agree. That's my feeling on it exactly. Look, it's 22 minutes past. My internet's probably going to drop out again here in this part of Africa, so I think we should probably wrap this up. Thank you very, very much, guys. Somebody told me I have to say things like subscribe now, there's a button below, and do this sort of thing, and we'll be here next Tuesday again. And I'm supposed to do a whole raft of things according to YouTube now, which I never do, so I'm not going to bother doing them this time. But thank you very much, guys. Hopefully we can all meet again soon, and I wish everybody a very safe and happy new year, and let's hope that 2017 is prosperous for everybody. So adios, guys.
Same to you. Good night.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.